Hey guys, Joe Miles here with Osseo Gear. This is the Mission Whitetail podcast. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what it truly takes to kill these mature bucks. We're going to step outside the box and look at the why for gear, tactics, training, and more importantly, the mindset from over 35 years of chasing these magnificent animals all over North America. Thank you for following along and welcome to Mission Whitetail.
Hey guys, Mission Whitetail episode 74. Had Bobby on for the last one. A heck of a lot of good information there. Always a treat to have Bobby Worthington on, and plan on getting him on a lot more. Going to be doing quite a bit of stuff with him this year. Starting with the course that he teaches out there in Tennessee. That'll be later in March and April, so excited about that. Gonna kind of split the podcast up today. Like I mentioned on the season update, we're going to be doing a lot more of behind-the-scenes stuff with Osseo Gear this year, and also a lot more really good, valuable content at Mission Whitetail. Pick back up on our product testing, kind of our gear reviews, really diving into the controllables, everything that we control, making sure we can maximize all of that. And the first thing I want to get into this year is bow setup. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit here today. Probably get Andy May on here in a couple weeks to talk about his setup. But the goal is to build the most lethal whitetail bow hunting setup, soup to nuts, that we can possibly build. And over the last 35 years, I've tinkered and played with that almost every single year, and I feel like the setup that I have right now is about as good as you can possibly have, but like always, there's a couple things that I want to test and tweak. And for guys that haven't listened to the Bow Build podcast in the past, basically what I've got right now is a prime bow at 74 pounds, 29-inch draw, shooting right at 295 feet per second, 470 grain arrow, mega meat broadhead. And it's the sight, too. I probably need to mention that. It's the Black Gold dual track sight, 2-pin sight with a slider. I've got the first pin set at 0 to 30 yards, second pin set at 40. And, man, it has worked great. After I've got one more hunt, Andrew and I are leaving this Thursday, day after this podcast airs, and we're going to Texas for the last hunt. And when we get back, I'm going to start messing with and testing new stuff. And again, what I want to create is the most lethal bow setup for whitetail deer that you can possibly have. Now, why do I say whitetail deer, and why am I not saying the most lethal bow setup across the board? Because whitetail hunting is different than elk hunting. Whitetail hunting is different than mule deer hunting. You know, when you're in the timber, when you're having to get into brush blinds, you know, your shot is different than standing up elk hunting or kneeling down elk hunting. It's a different animal, and your shots most of the time are a lot closer whitetail hunting. Not all the time. I've elk hunted a good bit and mule deer hunted, quite a bit too. So your shots, and I've really analyzed kind of the last 15 years and really the last 7 years where I've been shooting a lot of deer. In the last 7 years, I have not had a buck that I have shot other than a mule deer, outside of 30 yards. They have all been 30 yards and in. I hope I'm not telling a lie, but I'm going through them real quick in my mind, and I cannot think of a single deer from Mexico to Canada and from Kansas to South Carolina that has been over 30 yards, and most of them have been inside 25 yards and closer to that 20-yard mark. So I'm going to break down my thinking, and I would love to get the listeners' feedback too, with what has worked for y'all over the years, and get some engagement going here, because I try to keep an open mind and listen to what other guys that are successful at it, what they're doing. I hate the regurgitated YouTube stuff. A guy's listen to 15 different podcasts and watch a bunch of YouTube channels and just regurgitates that same stuff. I love to hear from experience. Hey, I shot 15 whitetail in the last 3 years, and this has really worked for me. I've shot, 8 mature bucks in the last 5 years, all over in saddles, in lock-ons, in brush blinds, spot and stalk, whatever it may be, and this has worked for me. I love real-world, proven to yourself stuff that works for you, and that's really what I want to get feedback on. If it's worked for you, I want to hear about it. So here's my thinking this year. I want to go and test, and when I say test, the first thing we're going to do is build it, and then we're going to shoot it through our mold compared to the setup that we have now, and then we'll get into hunting and actually shooting animals. We've got axis deer hunts set up for this spring. We've got a trip to Botswana to shoot some plains game. We're going to work on some hogs here in the swamp in South Carolina. So going to be able to, whatever the setup is that we like through our mold, shooting through our mold, we like the penetration, we like the accuracy, we like the quietness, we like all of that. Then we're going to put it to some test on some real animals. So we've got 10 or 15 kills under our belt before we even get to whitetail season, so that we've proven that our quote-unquote theory here worked. But I want to go the opposite way of the trend, and you're seeing that pendulum start to swing back to reasonable weighted arrows, but I want to go further. I want to get a arrow all-in weight, broadhead, fletchings, arrow, nock, the whole shebang insert of around that 380. That's about 110 grains less than what I'm shooting now. And I want to go way down on my bow poundage. I want to get down to maybe 64 to 67 pounds, 380 grain, all-in arrow weight, and still maintain that right at 300 feet per second. I think I'm going to surprise myself at how well that arrow penetrates. And boy, if you get on YouTube, that is the opposite of what a lot of guys are preaching. But Joel Maxfield, I believe, did a video on this and proved it. And I know his wife hunts with a pretty light setup and kills a lot of animals. And I want to try it. I get to talk with a lot of guys, obviously through this, through social media, through Mission Whitetail, and a lot of the trade shows, and then out when I'm hunting too in different states and stuff. And I was kind of blown away this year at the number of guys that I heard say they got busted drawing. And some of it was younger guys, some of it, older guys. And what I've noticed is they're overbowed. The bow that they're shooting, they're not accustomed to the poundage, and so it's a very awkward, big, aggressive draw, and that's causing guys to get busted when they draw. And I shoot my bow a ton, and I don't have a lot of that. I'm able to draw very, very level, very slow. But when you get into colder temperatures and you get into awkward shooting positions, which you do out of lock-ons, out of saddles, when you're ground blind hunting and you've got to bend around the window, you don't have perfect form. So I want to drop the weight down so that no matter what position I'm in, I can draw perfectly straight back without having to bend my arm anyway or use some weird muscle to get the bow back. Dropping the poundage will help with that. The other thing that'll help with it is, 74 pounds is to do more training. But I just think when it gets cold, the less poundage you can shoot to still maximize your penetration, maximize your trajectory, the better off you're going to be. So that'll be what I'm trying to do is to test a really light setup. And I feel like when you get below 350, it starts to getting out of control, and you potentially get into some dry fire type stuff. So I want to be in that 375 to 390 range, and I want to test it. And again, we're going to shoot it through our mold, see how it penetrates, see how it flies, give it some time. I'm going to test, obviously, the Prime, that new form that they've got. I cannot wait to get my hands on that. BA, if you're listening to this podcast, man, let's go. I'm ready to get that bow and get going. Also want to shoot the new Matthews. What is it, Wells? What's the new Matthews? Lift X. Yeah, I want to shoot that. The 29.5. That's intriguing to me because it's 29.5 inches axle to axle. And again, is that going to be as accurate as a 36-inch axle-to-axle bow? No, but it's give and take, right? I'm not trying to build the best target bow I can build. I want to get the most lethal whitetail hunting bow I can get, and having a compact bow can help in that, as long as you can still be super accurate with it. So at a 29-inch draw, I don't think I'll have a lot of string angle issues. That's what you run into when you have a axle-to-axle bow that is maybe as short or shorter than your draw length. Kind of a rule of thumb is you want your axle-to-axle to be a little bit higher. But with these new bows, new technology, and with the cams being as big as they are, I think a 29.5 will help with that. I want to shoot the new Hoyt, and Shane Bow, our office, Wells and Andrew are laughing. Shane Bow, he's one of our warehouse managers. He is a bow tech and came from an archery shop to us and says, I've got to shoot the new PSE. So I've never shot. Well, I started with a PSE. So I want to shoot a PSE, shoot the Hoyt, shoot the Matthews, and obviously shoot that Prime. I love shooting that Prime this year, hunting with it all year. And the smoothness of that draw and the ability to hold on target, it's just really, really well balanced. Now, out of all those bows I mentioned, and some I didn't mention, man, they are lethal. Those bows they're so close in spec. You know, we shoot with a decibel reader and a chronograph, and they're so close, feet per second, quietness, that all of them can kill deer. And it eventually comes down to what feels the best to you and what gives you the most confidence. I was always against that. I want the quietest, fastest bow I can put my hand on. Those are the specs that matter to me. And over time, these bows have gotten so close that it really does become a feel. What feels the best to you, what draws the best, what you can aim the best, and what you shoot the best. So hopefully guys can put blinders on and pick the bow that hits those benchmarks or check marks. And that's my plan. From a sight perspective, I'm going to dive into that real quick. I shot the dual tracks. I like the dual tracks. And I'm still a little too paranoid to go to a complete single pin sight, even though, as I mentioned, the last 5 or 6 years, all my shots for whitetail have been inside 30, and I've got one pin 0 to 30. I still get nervous that I may have a buck come by right at 40, and it's one I've been hunting, and I can make the shot, and I want to have that 40-yard pin. But I will say on that dual tracks, that second pin is not – I do not shoot it super accurately because it's got the post on top of it, the post below it. And I bought one of the Option Archery Canyon pounder sights that Dan Evans makes last year. I never got around to trying it and shooting it because I got it in late. But that concept makes a lot of sense to me. The window opens so you can have your second or third pin out of the way, and it's really a single pin. And if you get into a situation where you think you might have a 40-yard shot, you just close that window and you've got two pins there, and you don't have to use your wheel and dial to yardages. You've got your 30 and 40 right there. So want to give that sight a try. And again, guys, we're going to bring all this as we build this out. We're going to bring it all real time as we test this stuff. And, it's going to be no BS. We're going to tell it exactly like it is and what we like and don't like. Rest, I've had a lot of success with the Hamskea. I love that Epsilon Hamskea. No issues with that since I've started running Hamskea. I like it a lot better than some of the other drop-away rest. Had problems, especially with freezing on some of the other drop-away rests, so got away from those. Something different. Excuse me, I had to get a drink of water. Something different that I want to do this year, and again, it's just a paranoid thing. I want to have a whisker biscuit ready to go that's sighted in, tuned, and ready to go. We travel a good bit. We get down into Mexico, we get down into Texas. We're a long way from our archery shop, and if something was to happen to the Hamskea, knock on wood, it's not something that's just a quick camp fix. You're going to need a bow press. So I feel like that if something was to happen, I could just take that Hamskea off, drop that whisker biscuit right on there, and be ready to go, especially when we're talking whitetail distances of 30 and in. So that's something I want to have in my quiver. And I don't know exactly how that's going to work out because you tune – my plan here is to tune the whisker biscuit, take it off of the bow, put on the Epsilon, and then tune it. And I don't know how far off that's going to make the whisker biscuit out of tune. So what I want to do, it's a lot of work, but I want to mess with it, is once I get the Epsilon dialed, I'm going to take it off and then put the whisker biscuit back on and just see if there's a huge difference. I'm guessing it'll be some, and maybe there's a way to correct for that. So that'll be an interesting experiment to try and see if we can get them really, really close. Arrow-wise, you guys know I've been a huge fan of the Rip TKOs from Victory. They're a little heavy for this experiment of what I want to try. So I've got my boy Kalen Pope with Arrows Anonymous. He is actually building me some HLR Victory arrows right now, and he's pretty confident with insert and everything. He can get it around that 380-ish total arrow weight. So excited to see how those come in and how they perform. Another thing, I will say this, and I never believed this. I thought it was a marketing gimmick. The ice coating that arrow companies, I think that is a proprietary for Victory. I don't know that to be just Victory. It may be another company altogether. But the ice coating that goes on the shafts, I was shooting in a block target the other day, just doing some reps back here in the gym, and I kept going up to my target, and I had 2 Victories with the ice coating or whatever the slick coating is, and then I had 3 arrows without it, and I started noticing, I was like, these Rip TKOs, same diameter, they're penetrating over an inch further every time, and the target's pretty new. And so I started paying attention to it, and sure enough, man, there is no doubt, because both arrows weighed, within 4 or 5 grains of each other, both sets of arrows, and the ones that were not ice coated, I'll keep calling it ice coated, were not penetrating as much. So something to be cognizant about, something surely I'm going to pay attention to, is making sure I've got some kind of slick finish on the arrows. Let's see. Broadhead. I've beat this horse to death. I was a Trypan guy up until I started shooting the mega meats, and I have never seen anything as devastating as the G5 mega meat. It's going to take a lot to get me to move away from that head. Love it. So be shooting that again. Still, guys, on the hunt for a really good lighted knock. Shot nocturnals forever, and they perform great, and then I don't know what happened. I don't know if the company was bought, if the quality control was just missed a beat or what, or I just got some bad batches. But, man, the nocturnals, they just would start turning on for no reason, couldn't get them to turn off, just had a lot of trouble with them. And, again, I'm not talking down about nocturnals. It could have been just a bad batch that I got. But I started shooting the halos. Absolutely love that nock. I love the weight of it. They're built tough. They're super bright, but they are the biggest pain in the butt to turn off. Every time you put one on your string, when you pull it off your string, you have to turn it off. So that means at night, when it gets dark on an evening hunt, you go to pull it off, and there's a little groove in there you're supposed to put your thumb in, and as you pull it off, it'll turn off. Well, for me, it never worked. And so I would have to fool around with that thing or just leave it lit until I got back to where I could see in my truck and get it turned off. So anybody that knows the guys from Halos, if they've got any kind of new system out, please let me know on that. Another thing I want to play with this year is lightening up my whole bow setup. I've been running a pretty aggressive 8-inch, sometimes 10-inch stabilizer, and then an 8-inch back bar with quite a bit of weight on it to get it perfectly balanced. And I think it's overkill, especially for shots 30 yards and in. Whitetail, lethal whitetail setup is what we're talking about. And I want to play around with a very short stabilizer this year and absolutely no back bar. The back bar gets in my way. When I have my bow hung, I'm always bumping into it. It makes the bow heavy. If I've got to hold on target for a long amount of time, that heavy weight, again, you can train yourself to do it, but when it gets super cold, I feel like a lighter setup is going to be better. And then, you talk about having that weight on there for windy days. Well, I feel like with the whitetail setup, I've said that 15 times, and you guys are going to start rolling your eyes at me, but you don't have, you get in Kansas, you get 15, 20, 30-mile-an-hour winds, and, yeah, that can be an issue. But normally in the woods, inside 30 yards, you're still able to make really good, accurate shots. I want to test that and see if going lighter. We'll get some really windy days here in South Carolina, and I'll be able to get out and shoot it in the wind and see how it does out to 30. But thinking about doing away with the back bar, shortening the stabilizer, and just going the complete opposite of a really, really light setup, low poundage, light arrow, same broadhead, and just see how it does. I want to test it and see. I know for a fact the bow setup I have right now is great, and it is a killer setup and has killed a lot of deer, staying in that 470 grain all-in arrow weight with that 74 pounds at a 29-inch draw. It has been deadly. It has blown through everything I've shot in Africa and every whitetail that I have shot. So I feel very confident in that. I just am always looking to kind of improve and get something better. So, guys, stay tuned on the bow setup. We're going to be bringing that to you step by step. And if we find something we don't like, we're going to mention it. And if we find something that really works for us that we really like, we're going to mention that too. All right, like I said, we're going to do something different today. We're going to transition. We're going to pause for a second. I'm going to bring Andrew and Wells on the set, get them in the hot seat, and see if I can embarrass them and ask them some crazy questions about what the future is for our content at Osseo and Mission Whitetail. So, guys, stand by for a second, and if I'm guessing, Andrew's going to mesh this together perfectly so you won't even know we were gone. Stand by. All right, we're back, and as you'll see if you're looking on YouTube, I have two knuckleheads that have joined me. On my right here, your left, Andrew Aarons, and he is our head of content creating. Would that be accurate?
That would be very accurate, yeah.
And over here, knucklehead number 2, Wells Fleming, he runs our marketing. So
that's right.
Is that right?
That is it.
So this is the dirty team behind all the content. So any complaints or misinformation, that seems to be a buzzword nowadays that you see going around, We can blame it on these two.
We can blame it on Wells.
Yeah, we can blame it on
Yep,
Wells.
yep,
Or
yep.
Cole.
Or Cole.
Cole.
Yeah, we can always blame it on Cole. And then we could blame it on Shane, too.
Yeah. We'll introduce Cole and Shane here eventually, I'm sure.
Yep. Guys, the point being, we are working, the point being.
Yeah.
That's their favorite saying of mine that I say all the time. We are really working hard to provide more value through Mission Whitetail. And for me, it's kind of selfish because I want to keep getting better as a whitetail hunter. And we've kind of got a platform here that we can interview and connect with some of the best hunters in the world. And with that, we're able to pick up different pearls of wisdom and start sharpening our game, especially through Mission Whitetail. So we've had, it's the first of the year, and we've talked very diligently, is that a good word?
Yeah.
About creating more and better content and bringing more and more value. And then something interesting that we want to do, because we talk about it all the time. Osseo, we work our butts off here. Everybody, the whole team. I mean, it's I won't say it's 24/7, but it seems like that. If we're awake, everybody here is working on it, believes in the brand. And having said that, we do have a lot of fun here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to. I'm gonna quit talking here in a second and let y'all go, but I just want to tee this up. With the Osseo side of things, we want to bring a lot of the behind the scenes of what goes into building this brand, the crazy shenanigans that go on around the office. It's funny, it's entertaining, but it's pretty cool having gone from an idea in the woods in 2018, 2019 to where we are today with a real company that is starting to take market share that we're really proud of, and going to continue making good quality, high-speed whitetail bow hunting apparel. So having said all that, who wants to go first?
I mean,
I don't-
can,
yeah.
guess.
Wells is up.
Talk about where we're going, I
Ye-
guess.
Yeah.
Obviously, with Mission Whitetail and Osseo, Mission Whitetail started as a podcast, to build the ultimate or provide the most value humanly possible for the whitetail hunter, and to learn within everybody that comes on the podcast as well. Osseo was designed, we were trying to build the most lethal or most efficient whitetail hunting gear humanly possible to make us all better hunters, right? So we're trying to pair those together and do a better job of showing the ins and outs of both of these working together, provide value in everything hunting, but then also show how we operate here at the office on a daily basis. I think it'd be pretty eye-opening to everyone, because it's not something that's really done that often with other brands. To get them more, it allows us to build a better connection with all of our customers and whatnot, and also have a little bit of fun with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, our Kansas trip that we just
Right.
had. That was a lot of fun, and we're looking at different fabrics, and I'm not cutting you off. I'm just adding to what you're saying. Looking at different fabrics, looking at different windproof, waterproof membranes, how we can put those together to create the quietest whitetail. I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, all that stuff is interesting. We were talking about, and I'm not going to say what right now because it really could become a thing, but we were looking at different down the other day. This was a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I got the two fat bulldogs up goofing around, and 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, I get an Instagram message from Wells, and he's up looking at different downs across the world that could potentially make our gear quieter, warmer, lighter. So it's interesting, and we're dumb for having not done this before.
Yeah, and it's a constant cycle. I mean, like you say, we're always thinking about what we can do next and how to move on and step forward, but that's kind of something that we'll be able to reflect in content this year as well on Mission Whitetail. We're constantly doing stuff. We're going to constantly be recording, so the camera's basically always going to be on. And yeah, we're just going to kind of open up and let you guys see the ins and outs of everything that goes on and what it takes. So it'll be really fun and interesting, and just kind of see where that goes.
Yeah, I think it's what I'm sure a lot of people don't really think about too is, or know, I guess, about Osseo in specific is how small we are.
Yeah.
Like from an employee standpoint,
Yeah.
we're such a small, tight group of people. We're not some big, huge conglomerate quite yet. But we can still get to where we want to go with having this lean, mean team that we want, and keep having the fun that we're having, and be able to show everyone what it takes to build, the ultimate whitetail gear. There's a lot to it, like Joe was saying, from all the different downs and fabrics, outer fabrics that you can put on a garment and whatnot, the insulation types, the cuff styles, the trim styles, zippers, everything like that. We'll be able to show you guys, or hope to be able to show you guys throughout the year and going forward into the future with what all we come up with here.
Yeah, and the baby steps that we make every year, and sometimes they're bigger than baby steps with the technology. As technology improves, we're able to deliver more and more, or better and better quality gear. And I think all of us here, that's the ultimate goal, right? Is for Osseo to build the best whitetail hunting apparel that you can get your hands on at a reasonable, affordable rate.
Yep.
And we have done a very good job of that. And it's just, now it's getting to be a lot of fun because we've developed a team, not only the guys here at Osseo, you mentioned a small team, and really it's our fulfillment here. We do our own fulfillment. Every piece of gear that you get comes out of our warehouse there, either Shane or Zach or one of us. Heck, I've had Natalie back there. I've had my son. I've had my son's fraternity buddies. It's
community effort.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
It's a young, hungry company. I have been fortunate to have started several businesses, and they're all still functioning. But what I have learned in this business is the quality of people that you can surround yourself with is really what makes it go.
Yeah.
If people are showing up to get a paycheck, it just doesn't work. When everybody's bought in and sees the potential in what we've got going, I think that's really where we can shine and be a little bit different.
Yeah. And I think a big, like Wells was kind of mentioning earlier, it's all one big effort from a big team. And like you were saying, our team is what makes us kind of, in my eyes, stand apart, is we're all so close. And it's honestly kind of like family. Wells and I grew up together. We've known each other since we were 3. So coming in, that was kind of an easy connection to make. But yeah, I feel like everyone gets along. It's a great place to work. So that definitely helps.
Yeah,
in the sense of
on each
keeping
other
us.
day in, day out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these two, I called them knuckleheads earlier. They're probably the opposite of knucklehead. I think they were number 1 and number 2 in their high school classes or college classes. I don't want to blow their egos up too much, but
2 and 3. We got to give it to good
two
old
and-
Bates Felder on number 1.
Oh, is one of those Felder boys?
Yes.
Golly, I swear that's hard to hear. Number 2 and number 3 in their class. So smart young fellows, hungry, and I don't want this to be a Osseo sales pitch, but man, it just we got back from that meeting with our manufacturing team, and the stuff we have coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
From a base layer perspective and from an outer shell / extreme mobile hunting perspective, it really is
It's going to be exciting.
Going to be exciting.
And even this year, that was 2026 stuff that we were looking at. Was it last week or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
But this stuff that we hope to, or we will be bringing to market here shortly, it's going to be exciting too.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple teasers, and I don't have them all, so I won't have them all right. But we've got some boots coming this year. We've had a lot of guys interested in boots, so we got some really good. And I think you've probably worn them the most, Wells, and fit like a tennis shoe.
They're awesome. They're pretty light. I like them a lot. Probably the lightest pair I think I've probably ever worn. Haven't really tested that many boots, but just in what I've gotten to experience so far with them. I've had them for since October probably.
Yep.
And yeah, they're living up to the hype. We'll see.
Yeah.
See how they're received.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. We've got the puffy jacket was a huge hit, so we've got a puffy vest coming. We've got some heavy merino base layers. We've got some new accessories, some new glove styles coming.
And our traditional archers out there have been requesting a build beanie, so they'll have one of those coming as well.
Yeah, Bobby calls it a radar hat. I think that's what he calls it, something like that. Radar might be wrong, but that sounds like something he would say. So he's fired up about that. But guys, that's anything else y'all want to drop here, talk about? I mean, I don't want this to be, Mission Whitetail. We try to keep it as pure as we possibly can as far as providing value. But at the same time, we just wanted to update and let everybody know kind of what the future looks like. And guys, a lot of this, this podcast airs every other week. But if you want to kind of follow along on a daily basis, that's a great word. Yeah, basis. If you want to follow along on a daily basis, the Mission Whitetail and ICO Gear, Instagram, Facebook. I'm sure we'll be doing more on YouTube as far as shorts. Yeah. And our personal pages. I'll be tagging Andrew and Wells and everything that we do. So the Joe Miles Hunting personal page will have a lot of stuff on there, and it'll be kind of a repeat of all of it. But that's pretty much what we've got going. Wanted to let everybody know. And as always, it's important to us to get feedback.
Yes.
So, guys, if there's a topic you're confused about, let's say it's scent control, let's say it's camo, let's say it's broadhead, whatever it is, if there's a topic you want to hear more about or us to get an expert in on that topic, we'll do that. We'll bring in a scent control expert and go through all of that. So anytime you get a confused about something, want to know more about something, want to hear more about something, man, reach out to us.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, just someone chime in right here, we've had a few people reach out here in the last week or so with some content suggestions. And we got your mobile tree stand set up. I think I sent that to you last night. That's coming. Trail camera test. Broadhead tests, like you mentioned, arrow tests, light versus heavy. That's something that we're got in the works here that we're hoping to push out here shortly during this off season, as well as the rut funnel stuff. I think once you've had Bobby on here and then y'all have done y'all's class, that's really kind of taken off. So people are wanting to learn a little bit more about the rut funnel strategy. So that's just a few of the, I guess, top points that we have for some longer form content for you guys.
And the thing about whitetail hunting is that it's ever evolving. And I'm gonna land the plane on this podcast, but every single setup, the point being,
there you go,
every single setup ends up being different, but there's some components of it that you've learned from somewhere else. So it's an endless ability to take not only mine, yours, whoever's, lots of different guys' experiences in their hunts for a specific deer or how things played out in their terrain, in their area, that we all can pull from to get better at what we all like to do. And then also from a controllable, I call it controllable, that's tree stands, your camo, your bow setup, your broadhead, your arrows, all those things that are controllable that in my mind need to be as pure and as clean and you're as proficient with that stuff as you possibly can. There's new stuff that comes out every year. Some of it's hocus pocus, gimmicky, and some of it is, oh my God, this will actually make me more lethal. This will actually make me more accurate. This is going to make my setup quieter. Whatever it may be, you get to a point, especially with where technology is now, that it's just little inches, right? You're improving little bits here and there. But if you can do quite a bit of that, your setups become better and better and better. So always messing with it, always trying to improve it. So guys, We appreciate all of the feedback. We appreciate the support. We appreciate you guys listening to the podcast and following along with what we're doing. Just thank y'all, and let's get ready to roll in 2025.
Let's do it.